Something like that. This one.
I see no lights.
I know, I read. What's that? Pressure too much for you? Pressure too much for you?
Yeah.
Welcome to the 20th century.
21st century, but
Well,
you're not wrong.
no, that's. Looks like a cartoon to me, Sean, you know? The second motion.
My deal.
It's a really volunteer. What's that?
Oh, yeah. These people need something like, you should. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm being smart. Oh, I need this short.
It's 5:30, I would call the regular City of White Lakes Council meeting for Monday, November 10th at 5:30 to order. Roll call please.
Counselor Grant?
Here.
Garber? Here. Heckman?
Here.
Matheson? Here. Mayor Scott?
Here. Thank you. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, moving on to the consent agenda. Has everybody had a chance to read through that? Any questions or comments? Let's see that Tamika, our flight officer, had sent us some information, very, laid out very nicely, so thank you for that. I like the pictures and all the addresses listed and kind of updates, so that's appreciated. Do you wish to say anything to any of that, Tamika?
I know there's a few on there that said I hadn't heard back from, there's a couple voicemails I have to return that I got over the weekend. The Guilford one and the Wyandotte one, I will be returning calls probably this evening, but other than that, I haven't heard back from anybody else, so I will be, Wednesday, I will be driving around to check compliance on those addresses again, so the only thing I have, unless you guys have questions for me.
Is that a report? You guys satisfied with the report, or do you want anything differently changed, added?
No, I it's laid out nicely, kind of updates on what's going on with each one, yeah, I like that.
You just have to learn the ordinances now.
Yeah. Exactly. I went through them, do I list them all by, or?
Even one word would help,
Yeah, okay,
whether it was blight or whatever. you
Okay.
know,
I can do that.
Blight, grass, or
Yeah.
garbage, or, oh,
Sounds good.
And then as you're doing the job, if you find that there's a better way we could be doing things, feel free to reach out to us and give suggestions on how we can make things better.
And if there's ever times you guys want more pictures, anyone that I have sent a compliance letter to, I do take pictures. I just picked that one particular picture because out of the group that I sent compliance letters to, that happened to be the worst. So I just thought there was much needed cleanup at that address. So for us to have that much improvement already, especially from the bad as that house started, that seemed pretty good for me at that point. So like I said, I take pictures from every house before I send a compliance letter. So,
Yes, thanks again.
no problem.
Any other questions or comments on anything from the consent agenda? Hearing nothing, I'll ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda as written. So, motion from Councilor Jarvis, is there a second?
Second.
Second from Councilor Grant, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Moving on to the guest and citizens forum. Before we ask from residents, we'll have Jacob Crispo, have his presentation for the joint water project.
Evening, Council. Well, thanks for having me, what we tried to get together out at the project site, but ultimately, we were able to kind of put together a little bit of virtual tour. So I do have a presentation here I'll outline. It's gonna provide you some of the design documentation for the current project. And then I'd like to jump into some photos, so we do have some drone footage of the actual construction method, so that you can get a good picture of what the phase one project for the East Range water system is, and then if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. So like I said, I mentioned, so what I'm gonna go through is just a few project designs, we'll go to the project components, and then I'll have some detailed drawings on the raw water intake, the water treatment plant, and I'll get to that total presentation. So overall, for the project components, what this project entails is establishment of a new water treatment facility adjacent to the water tower in Aurora. And then there was a construction of the East Range Water Board's intake structure out by Embarrass Pit. With this project, there was a pipeline corridor that was established to provide water to the residents of the town of White and some external residents for Aurora. This project was sized to where raw water intake could accommodate 1,800 gallons per minute, and the surface water plant for this initial phase being sized at 0.8 MGD, which is a million gallons per day. They also installed, for this upcoming project, they'll be installing a 16-inch raw water main. So that was installed from the Bears Pit all the way back to the water treatment plant, and that was on that blue line. When this project started, there was a bid opening for September 7th, roughly around 34.25 million. That was a little bit past the funding, there was a funding gap, so we were contracted to assist with value engineering, which we brought the project down to 29.4 for the second bid opening, to provide a cost savings of roughly 5 million on this project. So this is the location of the raw water intake, it's at Orange Square. So it's adjacent to Biowabic's current floating barge system on Bears Pit. The raw water intake constitutes a caisson structure with a pipeline system, and to kind of elaborate, this is the shoreline right here of the lake, so that's the lakeside. There's an intake screen, a discharge intake line that comes into a concrete caisson structure that fills with water. And then inside that structure, there are pumps and a pump house to lift water along the pipeline back to Aurora. This is a sectional view that just kind of shows you the same thing with the water line. A lot of modeling went into this to determine if there was enough capacity to pull for all 4 communities, which were part of the original East Range Joint Powers. The intake structure itself is equipped with under this project, 2 pumps. There was a third spot installed for White Lakes in the future. So this building is currently being laid out actually as we speak. They haven't started this part of the project, but the caisson structure is installed. I'll show you some photos. So here's a couple examples of that caisson structure being built. We'll get into more detail in the presentation. The photo log. Here's kind of a snapshot of what it looks like inside that concrete caisson structure. For the water plant was laid out as a modular expansion. So you can kind of see with these dashed lines in the future, there'll be an expansion for White Lakes along with an expansion for the Clearwell. So currently on the facility this is your primary water treatment plant. We have parking lot, and gravel area, chlorine contact tank, and backwash. Like I said, areas that are expandable. The facility being built is your standard surface water treatment facility, which looks at flocculation, sedimentation, and filtration. And then this facility has a common space that's being built that all communities will be sharing under this current facility build. And that's your common space on the north, and then this is a treatment train that you see on the bottom side of the page. For White Lakes, we'd be building a very similar treatment train right to the south of that page. There's 3 levels to this plan, where you have a roof plan, and you have upper catwalk to the treatment facility components for those sedimentation tanks, the filtration tank, and the flock tank. I have a couple quick photos just showing you guys some of the construction for the tanks, of the inflow tanks, the discharge line. We have the precast going up to the main facility, which ultimately the building today, as you've driven by, looks like this. So do you guys have any initial questions on the design or layout? And I'll kind of get into the photos that kind of give you a good walkthrough of the facility. for a second. There we go. So I'm gonna start out with the raw water tank. I'm gonna go quick through some of the photos that kind of give you guys the green space to what it is today. So if you have any questions, just pause me as we kind of go through this, and I'll be happy to elaborate a little bit further. So, when we first started, this was a green space, this is for the raw water intake structure, and this is down by the embarrassed pit. So a road was cut in, and this is an older access, trail that they had back there. Looks like there was overall, people used to use it for whatever sort of, they wanted to, just kind of going back there, a little bit of debris and everything. Overall, this is the location of where the intake structure is gonna sit, and then this is the location of where that screen is gonna sit into the embarrassed pit. This is the staging area for the project, as you guys have kind of driven by. They first started off by building a shelter, because this is a long-term project, so over 2 years, this intake structure was being built. So initial, concrete work was done just to set up for staging areas. They came in, they leveled that area, so this is the current, when they started, this is, they dug down to get the caisson structure installed, part of it, to do the sinking. So they graded the back area, sloped everything. When they started making their initial cuts, excavators and cranes came on site to assist with that work. This is the frame that they use when they build it. So what a caisson structure is it's a concrete, this is a concrete 24 foot diameter structure with, roughly 6 foot walls. So as they sunk this thing, it's by gravity, and they use this ring to build, the form around it, and then they pour concrete, slowly sink it. We have a few examples of just the rebar that goes into the structure, but here's a good picture of when they're building it, they'll frame it up, form it, pour the concrete, and later on when they sink it, this crane will clam material in the center of it, and that structure slowly settles down, and then they start over again. So this was built in 10-foot lifts by slowly sinking it into the earth. This is when they're getting ready to start sinking that caisson, so they're starting to clam. And here's an example that several days later after it's sunk. So you can kind of see just slowly goes into the earth over a period of time. This picture is just showing you that this is the next loop of rebar that goes on top of it. They have rebar that goes into every section to make it contiguous, and they just start over, pour it again, and start to sink it, pull the forms. There's a picture of the bottom lift as they're doing the rebar from it. Most of the caisson was constructed in the wintertime, so this took most of the winter just to sink it. It's very slow going because you don't want the structure to tip. It's a very delicate process. As we got to summertime, they were able to kind of speed up a little bit. Here's an aerial image of the caisson structure. This does not have the final ring on it, but we did some drone flights during the construction project to show the full project. The side shot. And we have a little bit of video, a drone video that kind of shows you the site.
How deep is that?
Structure is about 30 feet.
And you went this way opposed to Orange Way?
Long-term cost and maintenance. The largest life cycles are in 10 to 20 before you do major maintenance. This should be 80 to 100 years before you do a lot of stuff. So this is a picture. So once we were constructing, they didn't even water the caisson structure, and it starts to get sealed. You want the caisson waterproof, and then you also have to remove all the muck and material that kind of comes into the structure over time, just naturally. So they would lower a mini excavator in there and daylight the material and remove from the caisson structure. Here's an example of as they're installing the final ring. It was a smaller ring, and getting ready for a structural slab that goes across the top of the caisson, which will then support the building that's sitting on top of it. At this point, then they were able to seal everything, they're removing water, and they're getting ready to micro tunnel through that. You kind of see on that far side, there's a little concrete penetration. That's on the lake side. They set up a rig, and they'll actually drill through that concrete sleeve and go out towards the lake. That intake line out to the lake is roughly 120 feet. So here's where they set up the drill machine, the jack and bore machine, forgive me. And it's very neat. All they do is there's an auger head that drills out the material, pushes a slurry up to these black tubes on the top of the picture. And then that machine slowly pushes these 36-inch steel casings into the earth, out into the intake line. And this is done over several weeks, just constantly pushing, to get it. A little bit of video is kind of showing them slowly pushing. The video is about 3 minutes long and doesn't show a lot because it's very slow. So if you guys would like to have a video of that or see more of it, we can definitely send it over to you guys to kind of take a look. But it's a very slow process. They inch this thing in until it gets to the elevation they want. And here's a shot of one of our inspectors inside. So once the sleeves were installed, they do grout around along that 36-inch steel. You can see sort of a fitting on the top of the page. That's where they do grout injections. And then they send teams of individuals down these things and they do weld them. So like there's work that goes on inside these 36-inch diameter jacket pipes. You won't find me in there though. So that was the case on structure. And this is ultimately where it's at right now. So additional work that's going on is additional water sealing, and they're getting to the point where they're gonna start building that building on the top, but they've not started that process yet. Any questions on the intake structure? All right, so this is the water treatment plant location. And I just kind of want to walk through some of the phases, and I'll go through this quickly, along with some of the tanks. So it started off by developing this green space, they bladed everything out, and then you start excavating for the tanks, which are subsurface of water treatment plant. Something you guys don't see with that building today is there's large tanks adjacent to the structure that are underground that nobody really can see other than a few man accesses. So they do the work to do the preliminary bedding, a very large excavation. They're ready for forms, and then they start placing the forms onto crushed rock or gravel. Be formed up, and they pour these bottom slabs and foundations. They'll do the form work. This is one of the backwash tanks that was on that drawing. So they built the backwash and the chlorine contact tank at the same time, and then they moved on to the water treatment facility that is butted against it. Here they're doing more work laying out for that chlorine contact tank. Here's the form work. Lots of rebar goes into this. This is going to be your backwash tank. This kind of shows examples of it. This was sized large enough to accommodate all 4 communities that they ever came on. So there's very little addition that has to happen with the backwash tank.
Are those tanks coated with anything on the inside before they're closed up?
Yes, they are typically sealed with either epoxy coating or some sort of resin that you do maintain over time. Here's all the concrete, all the form work for the chlorine contact tank. It's hard to see, but chlorine contact tanks, there's a lot of baffling that goes on. So these are all individual walls that get constructed during the process. And that slowly moves water through it to ensure that you have good residence time for chlorine. Additional form work to break out, there's some of those interior walls I was talking about getting formed up. Now they started laying out, at this point in time, they started laying out the foundation for the water treatment facility. So on the far side of the page, you can see that chlorine contact tank. Putting work. Putting forms for the tanks themselves. And they also have to run all the underground utilities before they can even build the building. So all the valving, all the lines that go between the tanks are all subsurface. So all that was installed prior to even pouring concrete for any of the sedimentation, flocculation, or filtration tanks. Now we have all the utilities, and the bar starts going in for all the tanks themselves. This is the discharge line, that 16-inch raw water discharge feed. And some of those site shots. So this is once the tanks were built. So this is some drone footage that we have. And what you're looking at on your screen is you see the flocculation tank is on the right, the sedimentation tank is there in the center, The filtration tank is gonna be, sorry, I've got it backwards. The sedimentation tank is in the center, the last tank is a filtration tank. There's the finished, chlorine contact tank, that subsurface tank. Then where the crane is sitting, that's the common area for the facility that has the bathrooms, showers, garage, high service pumps. There's a little bit more of a close-up drone shot. Your filtration tanks, sedimentation tanks, and then you're gonna have your rapid mixer, right where my mouse cursor is roughly at. So the structure is a precast structure, so at this point, precasts are going up, that's that large panel on the left side of the page. It's definitely a excellent way to go for constructing buildings quickly, because the precast panels can all go up, they give it a nice finished look. So the panels are being set. Here's the far west wall with panel set. And around the backside. Finishing. So this is two sections of precast, and then you can get different colorations for the precast itself. Once a precast was set, they started moving on to utilities, and they had the roof materials. So inside the building, they were laying out all the utilities underground. This is gonna be, then the floors will be placed later. But this will allow all your plumbing for your bathrooms, your fixtures, feed lines, supply lines. Electrical is all put in. Here's an example of the roof. An EDM roof was installed on that lower level. Flooring material is also going in, and they're gonna pour concrete floors over these tanks to provide levelers. The stoops were installed outside the facility. Additional, and then once they finish the utilities and the floor inside the building, now we're pouring the slabs. EDM roofing. Common space. And this is grading over the tanks that we saw outside. So they're bringing those grades back up, getting ready to place a parking lot and some of the sidewalks. So here's that gravel area for parking in the future. This is one of the chlorine contact tanks. Now it's buried. So that will come up to grade eventually to the top of that hatch. So it's that large tank that you just will have a small man access to. Then the CMU internal walls went up in the last several weeks. So that is it. So currently the building where it's at is there's no access to the upper levels. There are still windows, door work, other work that is required. And they're looking at getting the system online. It's upcoming May. So. You guys have any questions?
It's pretty impressive, the process. Yeah, how to do it.
So the work will continue to go underway. One thing I just asked Dean about too, as part of this presentation, we wanted to give you guys an update too. And we talked in our last East Range Water Board meeting about construction implementation methods that can be used in the future. This current project is being built under a general design bid build model, which is where you design it out, then you bid the project, and then you have contractors bid that work and obviously build the project for construction. Under this project, there's an opportunity that for the Hoyle Lakes portion of the phase 2 project that is currently being designed, is looking at a construction manager at risk model. What this model is where you will hire a firm that will ultimately bid out all the scope of work in manageable buckets, as you might call it, to contracting groups such as dirt work group, electrical group, mechanical groups. But ultimately, they're gonna bid all this work out with a guaranteed maximum price, which allows you guys to understand what the cost of the project's gonna be early on. Other models, what required is that you You understand what your project cost is gonna be on bid day. Here, you bring the construction manager on during the design phase, and they work with the project team, the engineering team, to kind of do cost estimation, value engineering, and other things that would be beneficial to ensuring that that project can be built on a select budget and within a certain time frame. So the current project, like I said, is being built, design bid build, but this would be a great opportunity for Hoyt Lakes to explore a CMAR process and get them on. To get a CMAR on board, it typically takes about a month to 2 months, once a board or a council approves moving forward with that. And so what that entails is we conduct interviews with CMARs, that could be like a Magney Construction or a Lakehead or other groups that are available. And then they'll provide a quote for pre-construction services, which is typically the cost estimating portion of this. So through this process, there's a lot of value where you get to understand what your project cost is gonna be at early front. They can be involved to understand changes in industry, such as if there's gonna be an increase in cost for items such as fittings, valves. They understand where the workforce is. And in this case, since this project's gonna be looking for funding over the next year or so, getting them on board allows for locking in a price, understanding the price to also dial in the funding. So we want to bring that up today because that was a conversation with East Ranch Water Board in the last meeting. They're also evaluating whether that cost model would make sense, or a construction model, forgive me, makes sense. But we wanted to bring it here and talk with you guys, see if you have any questions about construction manager, risk models, or a little bit more information.
Doesn't sound like anybody has any questions regarding that. I'm sure we can talk about further and alter decision. Reaching out to you with further questions for that. Sure. Is there a date you want to know that by?
No, we can, so where we're currently at with the design phase is we still have some time to incorporate a construction manager. Like I said, what's helpful now is as we work through construction estimates, we can provide market value based off historical experience, but when you bring them in, they can look at the designs at roughly 60–90% are what you typically involve them with. So we're not gonna be at 60–90s for several months, just based off where the project schedule are, and that still affords time for, you're talking mechanical, electrical, building, structural, which are the critical components, there's time for that to get involved, so.
Yeah, better to start thinking about those sorts of things sooner rather than later, so thanks for bringing that up. Anybody have anything else, for Jake for this presentation? I think towards the end, there's something else regarding the video or, but we can get to that when we get to the marketing story towards the end. Yeah, it doesn't sound like anybody has any questions, for the presentation. Thanks for giving that, Jake.
No problem.
So continuing on, is there anybody that has any questions or anything that they want to share? Resident wise? Nothing. Move on to reports from staff. City Administrator Wyder.
I really want to have a report tonight. Mayor Scott.
Good. Library Director Langy.
Events we have in November include a music program with Greg Tiberzi, called The Sounds of Wasabi, and it's this Friday, October 14th at 10:30 p.m. On the 13th, Thursday, we have a movie we are playing, October Sky, at 1 o'clock. On November 17th, Monday, Police Chief Posted will be sitting down with visitors in the library to talk about the work of the East Range Police Department. And November 18th, we are making a farmhouse-style tree ornament for our Tuesday creations. That's at 11 o'clock. And again, all of our events are free and open to everyone, so we encourage you to join us. Thank you.
All right, thank you. City Attorney Lewicki.
Thanks, Mayor. I don't have anything to say.
Moving on to reports from elected officials, Councilor Graham.
Just have a couple updates from the Joint Powers Board. As part of the Housing Committee, we started called the Seller Readiness Program, and so we finally had our first
loan, there's no interest, there's just an administrative fee, and it's if a homeowner is trying to sell their house, but it might need a new roof, new windows, some ADA or safety features before it can sell. We'll provide them with the funds to do that, and then we recoup that money at closing, and we can continue to provide that to people that are looking to sell their homes. So we had our first one for that, they'll close on later this month. And then we also have the business loan participation. During COVID, we gave some zero interest loans to 6 local businesses, so they could either get by during COVID because the business was low, or to do some repairs, maintenance renovations that they needed. And now we revamped that program. It's a low 4% interest over 10 years loan. And we did our first one of those also with one of the Aurora businesses. So we just did a mass mailing and email that I also sent to all the administrators to kind of promote to your local businesses. I'm sure I didn't get every single one in all the towns, so we can kind of push that to anyone looking to do some work on their business to keep it running. And that's it for now.
All right, thank you. Counselor Grillo?
Our last meeting, when Bucky Peterson was talking about what was going on at the arena, I apparently misunderstood some of the things he said. I talked to him. I wanted to question the water heater, the eye wash, and shower costs on the ammonia plant at the arena. And he set it up so I could attend the meeting, and as it turned out, it was a misunderstanding on my part. I apologize to the contractor for taking their time out for that. And they were only talking about the emergency shutoffs. I thought it was for the whole project. Thinking of the, I mean, it was a 300,000 BTU electric water heater, which would provide enough hot water for 5 or 6 houses in town. But anyway, we got that cleared up. At the PD, East Range Police Department, a meeting tonight for the commission, Jordan explained to us that they were able to get rid of the vehicle they had, the former K9 vehicle, and they sold it off for $4 grand. He said it also needs about $4 grand to work, so that was good for the city to see that go. And I had been approached by a couple of citizens during the fall about activity of our police department with the money the city pays out every month for them. And I really couldn't answer their questions. And as luck would have it, talked to a friend from Gilbert, and in passing mentioned it to him. And he said that their city council and police commission there get reports from the police department every month. And they're able to review it to see what the activity level is of the department. I don't know if Evelyn does that at all.
Yes, I'm kind of watched that with.
Okay.
So I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't know if they do or not. I can find out.
That was just curiosity. And he explained what went on. And, like I said at the meeting, I know, Gilbert Kaufman. And he provided me with some of the information. I brought it up to Tiffany and Jordan, and they're going to look in at the possibility of providing that information to both the city council and the East Range PD commission, find out, you know, so that we can see what the activity levels are up there. That's all I have.
Sounds good, thank you. Counselor Ekman?
I had someone from AUA reach out to me and they want to expand transportation in our area. So she just wanted me to ask people what are our needs. If they want, they can email me what our needs are. Like some people suggested like for sports after school, so more kids could play sports. And then also don't put cans in the pantry down here because they're starting to freeze at night. So they're expanding. So just wanted to remind people, don't do that right now. And that's it.
All right. So yeah, people are needing transportation and their ideas for transportation needs, reach out to you, email.
Sure.
All right. Thank you. Moving on, Counselor Matheson.
I don't have anything to say.
Good. Nothing big from me either, so we'll just move on to the old business. Over old business, 5.1, Verizon land lease agreement. Mind speaking a little bit to that?
Sure. So that's kind of been falling by the wayside, and you called me last week and tried to kick it back up to the priority list or something to work on. And to move forward, in your packet, I included what we're getting from American Tower currently, for the tower that's out there. The initial, it was in a couple different work for council packets, so I didn't print out the whole land lease agreement again, but he told me last month, if we, they told me our rates were for American Tower, because they were only offering us about $500 per tower up over here, running the tower. And I see we're getting, well, next year we'll get $856 for the one American Tower one, so I thought maybe we could just mirror that. And then so I can at least keep moving forward on that. Or pick a number, so I can populate that number. So,
I like the idea
There is
of
a-
it the same as the other one.
there's some other gear on this tower too, so that's what I want to make sure to check with Joel that if they hang somebody else's gear on that tower, that we also get a franchise fee for that as well. Because that's what we do currently, we get a $856 from American Tower, and we get another 500 or something from somebody else's gear that's on that tower as well. So and that's really what the only significant thing I want to make sure that's consistent.
Well, as long as we keep it equal between the two towers.
Yeah, so his argument is gonna be, well, if it's a less of a footprint. Because the tower that's out there now has those guide wires on it. So it's a larger piece of property in theory. In my mind, it's still a cell tower.
Towers.
That's one thing. Just because it has wires or doesn't have wires shouldn't change the feet. But I'd like to get a decision on that if we could, so I can move forward.
I guess, do they look at it like they're leasing the land from us, and that's why they wanna be less, because they're leasing less land?
That's what his thought is. But,
I guess I kind of understand the thought, if they're leasing them a smaller parcel of land, they're gonna ask for, to pay less money than if you would go and buy 30 acres of land, you're gonna pay more than if you buy 10 acres of land. I mean,
True, but
this is conducting business on it.
this is a matter of square footage with these towers. They're not, the area that the tower base is in isn't that big to begin with. And then these pads for the guy wires, they're fairly small also.
we don't, like, when we lease this one, the American Tower, we don't lease the whole footprint, including the guy wires.
It's laid out, and it's mapped out as that entire footprint. So it's what do we want to say, 300 by 300 is what he's looking at least now. As far as the land, but I'm looking at it's more of a different franchise of what's on that tower and what.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely right.
I mean, if that's the only sticking point, if he's saying, well, it's less land, I mean, I wouldn't mind entertaining a discussion about that. That's gonna hold up the whole process. Something's better than nothing, definitely, but
Well, my thought would be my recommendation would be give them a number that you guys are comfortable with and then see what comes back.
I think from looking at both of the agreements, that the Verizon tower as proposed has more land than this.
The footprint's larger.
That's, yeah, well, they're requesting 10,000 square feet.
I thought it was smaller, but.
I think the American tower lease is 2,500 square feet.
That's just a big one. It takes almost, what, 10 acres to. Put that guy wires.
And are they leasing the whole area or all of the guy wire overreach?
That's a good question, I'll have to look, because I just assumed it was because the footprint of the map that American Tower has.
Yeah.
Including that.
We were checking.
if we want a starting point, I would say we could start with what we're currently using with America.
That's what I would say.
See what he comes back with and. Yeah,
I like the mirroring, because I think the numbers will be easier to follow, like mirroring it the same as that,
Yeah.
the numbers would be easier to follow.
I agree with that.
856.
Yeah, I'll round it up. Yeah, because there's a 2% escalation clause in there too, that's every year goes up 2%, that's why it's such a hard number.
That would be the same with both contracts.
I believe that part's the same.
850.
So,
They make a lot of money with the tower space in that building.
his first offer was 550. But it was less than so.
Yeah, I remember it being 550, is what you initially threw. Everything's gone up, so. Back at
Joel, would we need to make a motion on that, or just being 850 and then continuing to negotiate?
Yeah, you can just direct, administrator, whatever, to negotiate with them. I do think, one thing we could look at is, I think that the American agreement, that lease, has incorporates easements for those sky wires. So the overall footprint is not all being leased, I think they've got easements for those sky wires, so it is a little bit different. It's not exactly apples to apples as far as what they're leasing. And Verizon's actually leasing a little bit larger pad, but the overall, yes, the overall, so, but we can look at that and compare that. If you direct administrator, we can probably work, and I can work with you too, as long as you have a, I guess, maybe a formula or plan in mind of how you want to set that, you can do that. You could just do it like, I would do a motion, so it's in record, should have clear evidence for how you want to move forward.
So we'll take a motion to direct, city staff, including, city administrator Wyberg and, city attorney Liberty, to continue coordinating, with Verizon, with the council approving that starting rate of $850 a month. We'll have that as a motion. Is there anybody that would make that motion? Motion from Councilor Jarvis, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Councilor Matson, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
We need to keep in mind that with that American tower, with the guy wires, they are tying up that entire block of land. And if they're only taking the pad that the guy wires are on, and leasing in small areas, they're still locking up that entire parcel.
Yeah, for future development, yeah, you can't develop.
Yeah, you can't put anything there under that.
Okay, I'll continue on. Get back to-
Thank you for doing that. Moving on to 5.2, Southeast Youth Hockey Association, Hockey Cup contract. You want to speak to this to me?
Yeah, so I made all the correction revisions and that were on there, except for the changes. The only folks, if you guys are, you had a chance to look at it, I don't know if you have one else, but the only thing that's outstanding is they did request a 40-60 split versus a 30-70 split on the revenues.
I thought they wanted 70, yeah. They
Oh,
wanted-
they want 40%.
No, they
No.
get 70% in the last agreement.
Oh.
Well, it was 60-40 at one point, they get 60%, they
Oh.
wanna get 70% now, and the city gets 30.
Right.
So that's the way they, yeah, that's. So they want 70% instead of 60%.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think it used to be 60.
It used to be, yeah, that's what
It
she
was
had.
70-30, and then it switched to 60-40, so now they wanna go back. Because it's 70-30. And I don't see a problem with that, because I do know they have less, I mean, there's, used to be at least 2 boys and 2 girls high school hockey games there, they usually, last year they had 1 boys game there, and that's it, I mean, I think youth hockey, they're combined with Virginia, and a lot of games are held over there, so I mean, I don't think they're making quite as much money as they used to. They get junior gold now. They do, but that's not, I don't think as well attended, it's getting, I mean, it is popular, but I feel like their revenue is still down, but everything's gone up in price, so yeah.
If we do
The revenue
that,
cost is up.
if we do that, is there some way it can be watched so that we can look at the end of the year and say, okay, they're making a lot more than they used to, maybe we can go back to the 60-40?
They used to have to submit something.
Yeah, I think at the end of the year, talking with Betsy and Tammy, they send over the information so that we kind of know what the figures are. I don't know if they did that last year or not, but, assuming so, but if not, we can touch base with them. Yeah, at the end of the year, I think so.
good.
So yeah, looking through it. Yeah, way of supporting, you know, you're talking, making sure that costs are relatively low for kids is sort of that. In addition, Bucky talked about how we gotten a fair amount of money from them to make improvements in the arena too, so a way of thanking them for that too.
And I see we did get the list of what they own and what we
Oh,
own,
yeah, that's the other change.
on there, which, yeah, they don't, most of it is what Lakes is, so, you know, just to remember that we're responsible for keeping all that, you know, it's our cost as well, to make sure all that's maintained.
Thank you for making those updates. Does anybody have any other comments or questions regarding this new, concession stand agreement? Hearing none, I will ask for a motion to approve the White Lakes concession stand agreement.
I'll make a motion.
Motion from Counselor Beckman, second from Counselor Jarvella. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Moving on to new business, 11.1, Max Gray application number 14. Nearing the end of having to approve these. Fingers crossed. Yeah, for the arena, we've gotten 13 before this, looks similar to all the other ones. Anything else you want to add to any of this, team?
No, I mean, it's been a great project and it's fantastic. The only thing that's left in there is the wheelchair lifts. And then that'll be it. The retainer at the end that we have to pull back, but yeah, but all in all, yeah, there's some change orders, it's still 7% under budget. So when we end up under budget, that's a good thing, it's a good project, so.
We'll see if all the change orders that we have to
Most
discuss
of them
too.
small, there were a couple of side ones, for sure. Yeah. Well, you know, 4.5
Any other questions or comments regarding this new pay application? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve Max Gray application number 14, in the amount of $208,936.16.
I'll make that motion.
Motion from Counselor Graham, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Counselor Mattson, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving on to 11.2, 2026 council meeting monthly schedule, moving to the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month at 5:30. Yeah, feel free to talk to that.
Well, we did talk about it before, but we never took a motion on it, so.
Yeah, we talked about it, like,
Everyone's supposed to email it, with all the feedback I got was fine, move it to, back to the original Tuesdays. But we did find the minutes when they did look at the Monday, they picked it on some of these sporting events stuff, or coaching or something, so. Yeah, Tuesdays is really helpful, to see that.
Does that still work for everybody, having it on Tuesdays? Worked for me, so.
Like I said, in the previous meeting, planning commission, the number of services on Tuesdays. So that'll have to be moved to a different date.
Really good. Do they do it on like a,
Planning commission.
Oh, we only met once, it's an
Yeah, we got another notification that it was canceled for this one too.
we'll pick up again, spring from.
Yeah,
do they do those like on the second and fourth, or did they do those like on the
it's first once a month.
once a month on a Tuesday? Oh. So I feel like,
Like I said, it's just a matter of moving the dates.
right, yeah, that one should be pretty easy.
I think, Mayor, I think they meet on the third Tuesday,
Oh,
because
perfect.
they meet the same time the library board meets.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
And that
this
will
will-
start in January then,
January.
on the 13th instead of the 12th. That sounded like I need to check my calendar, yeah, the 12th would have been a great, I mean, Monday the 12th, so. Okay.
Don't change your minds because they're here, it's just.
So those will be starting January then, on the Tuesdays.
That,
Any other further discussion or questions, for moving the dates around? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve the scheduling of the 2026 Douglas City Council meetings to the second and fourth Tuesdays of each month at 5:30.
Make a motion.
Motion from Councilor Matheson, is there a second?
right.
Second from Councilor Jarvala, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Moving on to 11.3 joint power agreement, and this is informational, so we got it.
Yeah, that's informational, and they're pulling back on it a little bit right now as we speak, so. But that's a joint powers agreement, so what this is, the joint, I want to get in front of you as early as I could. But it's a draft joint powers agreement that would incorporate White Lakes into, the rural water project and become a voting member for, I mean, I go to every meeting, they go to every meeting, and I'm another person on that, the representative, White Lakes on it. But yeah, it's in draft form, I highly recommend in your spare time read it, because it's gonna be impactful next few years. All right, is you ready? Well, just it kind of does. But
Sure, so overall, it's, the current changes have been reflective of the last year's worth of meetings, we had those joint meetings, so all the feedback that was provided between, the three parties, was brought together, with a lawyer, and that's what is in front of you, is the derivation of those conversations over the last about 9 months, so.
oh, so this is prepared by Freiberger too. And I don't know, Joe, I sent you a quick email. I don't know if you want to do something we should review for us.
Yeah, I'd like to, just to give a initial pass, ultimately it's gonna be, with them, but, I can have a quick look.
All right, thank you.
Luke mentioned at the meeting tonight that this may be postponed for a while.
Yep.
Because of that PFA funding. We'll talk about.
We gotta go to the ball.
What's that?
There's a little snafu in the funding. So hopefully they get it sorted out and we'll get back on track with this one.
Is that the 10 million versus 5 million that we were supposed to get?
Yeah.
Any questions?
It's in question, again. Correct. But there's no definitive answer on it, so they think it might be a month or two before we get a definitive answer. Lucas did great.
And will that change something about the agreement, depending on what
I don't know if
that?
it'll change the agreement so much, but it might.
He just said timing.
Huh?
Luke said timing tonight.
A little bit of timing, but
Yeah.
I think if it's not approved, that means Wayland's gonna have to look for more revenues.
Yeah, because that was supposed to be they took it as our buy-in.
Mhm.
Which probably will consume the part itself with that.
Yeah.
It's just gonna change the dynamics of it.
And when you say we need one more member, like Josh Benda, or like some.
Josh or,
Water department.
I think it should be a voting member, because we have, if you look in there, it's the version of supermajority, and everybody has to be unanimous.
Mhm.
And it should especially be when it comes to spending White Lakes funding. So, that's something that Joe will take a look at. But Josh is on there, Josh is started coming, I don't know if
So not technically voting members
they're
yet?
not voting numbers, but once we start voting.
Right. So, yeah.
He seems like a good rep as far as at that meeting, if you're voting on stuff, it feels like his knowledge would be,
Oh, he's a huge technical.
yeah,
resource.
have on there versus another council member. I just feel like he would. be
Jake
a
was,
fit.
Jake was the other
Yeah.
member,
Josh.
of the board there.
But my only thought is that if you look at the makeup of the board, Josh's equivalent is not a voting member.
Josh is what?
Equivalent in Aurora is not a voting member.
No, he's there attending it. They've got John Skelton, who's on the town of White board. Dennis Shuby, he's not on the council at all, he's on the board. Dave Skelton is the accountant on the board. Doug Greider being the mayor, he's on the water board, and they say that will change once everything gets set and they start actually running the place. They'll eventually get down to a three
for each.
board, yeah.
One
One from each
Oh,
committee.
wow.
Once it's actually up and running,
Yeah.
that's part of the verbiage you have to change. They had, it's dropping down to a 3-member board starting in June next year, I think it is. And we're gonna go back to 6, to 2 from each community.
For now, yeah.
Yeah. Until our part of the project's done.
And that can be a piece going into the new year, when we lay out like what each committee, each council member is on.
You do that every year?
Yeah, at the beginning, I don't know exactly when, but yeah, we do it every year. Things like that, so we can, yeah,
Be another committee assignment.
right, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Yeah, I think that for the discussions, then we can see how everything's going, everybody so far, is going on. Then friendly, if they want to add new ones or change or drop things, so. I'll go then more, so, yeah, we'll be holding off on this, agreement, and then when we have to look at making a decision on it, we'll revisit it. There's informational now, but like Dean said, make sure you read through it, and come up with ideas, questions, changes.
Joe, you want a standalone copy, or do you, yeah, I'll send you a copy. of this one, because it's otherwise it's carried in the board pack, for council pack, so.
Moving on to 11.4, 2026 liquor license applications, pending receipt. I think Tammy had mentioned that she did get, all the documents now. So I chatted with her, she explained that they don't usually put the information, regarding those in the packet because it includes things like, tax ID numbers, insurance information, those different types of things. So whenever they, look for approving liquor license applications, they don't put those in the packets. Sounds like they've gotten everything, so we're just looking for, the motion to approve the 2026 liquor license applications. Questions or comments, anything you want to add, Lee?
Pretty straightforward,
Yeah, do it every year, I think for all these places, so.
We used to have bonds as well, right? They aren't renewing theirs. They didn't do it last year.
I don't think it was last year.
I just wondered if that was just, yeah, for.
Any other comments or questions for that? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve the 2026 liquor license applications.
I'll make a motion.
Motion from
I'll
Councilor
second.
Ekman, second from Councilor Graham, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Moving on to 11.5, Fulton Main, permission to develop marketing materials for the joint water project. Can you speak to that?
Absolutely. So kind of in light of just the prior conversation we had too is, with some of the funding being up in the air a little bit, there's still potential for a need for a state or federal appropriation for the project to, we kind of talked about funding and finding what the funding packages pull together. So Bolton Lake, we'd like to have permission, to start building a marketing portfolio for the project. We did this with the East Range Water Board. It's something that's no cost. It's part of what we do with the project. We like to formalize the request to make sure you guys have an opportunity for input. But what this is going to look like is we'd like to develop the story of the project and the need. Ultimately, what the funding gap is going to be, this information is going to be leveraged by anything that you'd like, from internally and educating residents all the way up to requesting for state and federal representatives to provide the context of what the project is and the project need. What specifically we have in mind is we'd like to develop a bunch of one-pagers on the project scope to develop marketing boards or poster boards that can be either displayed at different locations, at conferences, at state requests. We can provide some of the officials that are heading to, they get to the Capitol, information that they can actually use. And lastly, we'd like to talk about developing some testimonial videos of what the water quality in White Lakes is, just from the residents' perspective, to kind of show and care showcase that, you know, the Colby Lake water, what that is versus what other opportunity could be with the Embarrass pit. And use that to sell the story of why this project should be funded. So that's what we'd like to request permission is to move forward developing that market package. And then we provide it to you guys to review, provide comment on as we move forward.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. We always have something ready to present. When we're gonna ever go to try to get money or educate the public. I think it's a good idea.
I make a motion to do just that.
So we have a motion from Councilor Jarva to approve Bolton Mink to develop marketing materials for the East Range Water Board, Bite Lakes, expansion project. Second from Councilor Mattson, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Jake. Moving on to 11.6, budget and final levy future meeting schedule.
So we have the truth and taxation meeting on December 8th at 6:30 PM. Prior to that, I'd like to get at least one more budget meeting scheduled, if not two, somehow. Whether your guys' calendar lines up, or one line calendar up to be there.
What time was that again on you?
6:30 for some reason. Yeah, it has to be at 6:30 according to statute. So, and that's on.
And then our
Saturday.
meeting will just follow, or? No, our meeting should be done by then.
Our meeting should be done by then. Now, so this is my first truth and taxation, to be truthful, but apparently they go pretty quick in the past.
A lot of them used to be really ugly, but they calmed down quite a bit from what they used to be. They're not so bad anymore.
So we have good participation, you're saying? So anyway, yeah, we could probably do one longer budget meeting, or we could have a short council meeting, or we could look at budget meeting. We kind of had a meeting already.
Oh, you mean the 24th?
Yeah, and then the final levy is like 20th or 27th or something.
Oh, this
Well, I think I put that verbiage in, that was confusing. On or before 5 working days after December 20th, the final levy must be done. So it has to be done before.
Christmas break, we need to have it done.
So yeah, I mean, every Monday I'm available, so.
So the 24th, you're saying? So stay at the 24th meeting?
So yeah,
Or the public forum too. But, yeah, so we just make that a one meeting.
I'm fine with the 24th, I'm here.
yeah, I mean, if we wanted one earlier, I'm available the 17th, that's a Monday, next Monday. 24th, I'm around, we want to have one meeting after our council meeting.
We could do that.
Rather stay later than do another day.
Yeah, let's go. It's up to you guys.
And if we're not able to get everything done that we want to, then we go into the first, or, yeah, sometime that week, of December 3rd.
Do we set rates and all that, right? So once I get the rates set, then it's probably.
And then giving you a couple of weeks, so we'll find more, we'll have everything put together by then, give you some time to sort this stuff. So does the 24th after our council meeting work for everybody?
Yeah, so for me, I'll try to keep that agenda light. The agenda is agenda. If there's stuff like that.
Alright, so we will look forward to that, we won't need any sort of motions, I'll do what I need to online to call a special meeting. So we're done with that, I believe that's everything. That's everything, I'll ask for a motion for adjournment.
I'll make that motion.
Motion from Councilor Graham, second from Councilor Darrell, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.